Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to our show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. On our game day segment this week, our guest is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine magazine. Before we visit with John, let's get it started with a few of my thoughts, as we always do. I have to begin with a big shout out to Michigan Gymnastics and their head coach Bev Plotke. Last weekend, the ladies brought home our first national championship. And if I'm being honest, I would have to say that, other than highlights, I usually don't carve out too much time to watch gymnastics. I did last weekend, though. It was exciting to the very end, and we should be very proud of Coach Plotke and her team. If it wasn't for this darn pandemic, the girls would have had a proper welcome home, and I'm sure a ceremony in the works, with fans being able to attend and give them some love. Unfortunately, things like that just aren't happening right now. So nonetheless, it was a great achievement for Michigan Gymnastics and for our outstanding head coach, Coach of the Year in college gymnastics, Bev Plotke. So once again, congratulations, ladies. With spring practice over for football, we have somewhat of a lull between now and July when the guys report back to camp, and the preseason hype machines will be kicking into gear. In between now and then, we do have an important spring and summer of recruiting ahead of us, and what is now the number 20 class could end up much higher. It really has to end up higher. When it comes to Michigan football, there is always something to talk about. I think we can all agree on that. So joining us next to do just that is editor John Borton from the Wolverine magazine on this edition of the Michigan Man. So stay with us. Here with us on our game day segment this week is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine magazine. Great to have you back with us, John.
Well, good to be with you, Mike. It's always a pleasure to join you. You do a very good job, and I look forward to it.
Well, thank you very much, sir. It is April as we chat this morning, despite the way it looks in southeastern Michigan and across the Midwest. And there's really plenty of news to talk about in the Michigan athletic scene before we get into sort of a quiet period. But let's start with football, John. Spring ball concluded last week with a scrimmage. Now, there wasn't much hype surrounding that scrimmage. And, probably for the Michigan football team, because a lot of the focus during spring ball was on men's and women's basketball, which is good. So it took the spotlight off of Michigan football, which, again, probably a good thing, isn't it?
Well, I think that they just as soon keep it quiet right now and keep things buttoned up, work towards getting better. When you go through a 2-4 season that was, COVID truncated, it's not something that people are coming out of that with a whole lot of confidence. I'm not talking about inside the building, but as you look on, you hear talk about this being the most nervous maybe that the fan base has been since, say, 2009 when Michigan was struggling. So many changes, so many adjustments to make. You've got a new defensive coordinator, many new faces on the staff, and new players to mix in. I mean, you have the early entrance. So I think that in the mind of Jim Harbaugh and his coaches, it is not a bad thing to keep things kind of on the down low right now and just quietly work to get a lot better without a lot of prying eyes and a lot of observation. They put some information out through their own means and people inside the athletic department, but I agree with you in that they looked at this as not a bad thing to kind of keep a lid on it this spring.
I agree, and you said that Michigan fans are nervous, and I agree with you. The fans that I talk to daily are not only nervous, but I think for the first time in a long time, their expectations for this coming season are not as high as we normally see, are they?
I would agree with that, and I think that's a little bit of self-preservation because it has been really since 2016 that Michigan has fielded a team that everybody had great anticipation about, and went through much of that season undefeated, and certainly threw a huge scare into Ohio State down in Columbus, led in that game by 10 points at one point, before it slipped away in overtime. You just look at what Jim Harbaugh promised, not through his words, but through what he has done as a coach at Stanford with the 49ers. And when he came here, the sense was, okay, now this thing's getting squared away and back to where it needs to be. At that moment in 2016, it looked for all the world like this was the moment. This is, you're laying down the path to the future. Well, things have kind of slid back since then. And Michigan has not only not beaten Ohio State, but you've struggled with the Wisconsins and the Penn States, and you're still 500 in the Harbaugh era against Michigan State, and that rubs a lot of people the wrong way. So I think that Michigan fans are looking at this and saying, okay, we see the changes, we see the talent that you're bringing in. Now we're going to sit back and see what happens with it, as opposed to going in with championship expectations.
I think that's a good thing. One of the things, of all the things you mentioned about the Harbaugh era so far, that I think rubs people too, is that we have not really, other than Jake Rudock, had a quarterback when we didn't really develop Jake here at Michigan. That's been a thorny issue. And I thought it was interesting after spring practice when Coach Matt Weiss, new quarterbacks coach, mentioned that Cade was the starter, or he was comfortable with Cade. And I'm not sure what that really means at this time of the year, but even hinting we have a starter in April is not something that's happened under Jim Harbaugh.
There's no doubt about it. I joked yesterday that I didn't expect to hear someone was leading for the quarterback race till maybe halftime of the Western Michigan game. That's but yes, to hear Matt White say that Cade McNamara is your leader coming out of spring, I think it means something. It means that Cade McNamara performed well enough to elicit those words, and B, that I think Weiss there is sending a message, maybe to the Michigan fan base, which loves to get on quarterbacks from anywhere from Chad Henne to Tate Forcier and beyond. I think that at some point, Cade McNamara is going to be out there again, and maybe there are some shortcomings that he will face, or some adversity. But what Weiss said, not just that he is the leader at this point, he went on to say, here's a kid that's going to play, for whatever criticism you want to level at him, was going to play 10 years in the NFL at some point. So I think the message he's delivering is, yes, we understand that quarterbacks get criticized, and criticized heavily, but understand this is a guy with some skills, and give him a chance.
Exactly. I mean, Alabama and Notre Dame were not recruiting him just for the heck of it. This was a very good quarterback coming out of high school.
Absolutely. And we saw, look at the fact that he was able to deliver one of the two wins that Michigan had last year, when he comes into the Rutgers game, and everybody says, well, it's just Rutgers. But before that, Rutgers was on the verge of running Michigan right out of that game. Michigan was not scoring points against that team. They were moving the ball a little bit, but certainly not putting points on the board. He comes in, and all of a sudden you've got this thing rolling, and you're able to have a shootout win. Not something that you necessarily want with Rutgers, but you'll certainly take it over the alternative. So in that game alone, you saw Cade McNamara being able to confidently take charge of that offense, deliver the ball. He throws a very catchable ball, which I know the receivers appreciate, and the coaches do as well. He's got some aspects to him that can really lead a team. And I know he's determined to do that. That does not mean that he's the starter. It means he's the leader at this point. But it's better to at least have as your leader someone who has been on the field and we have seen deliver a victory.
Absolutely. And the thing that I heard Coach Weiss say a couple of times, and I think when coaches say, I like his decision-making process, the way he sees the field, that's huge. You can have the big cannon arm, the mobile legs, but if you don't get the ball where it's supposed to be and find the open receiver and check down on that defense, it doesn't matter.
You're absolutely right. So much of the game is played from the neck up. It's played in being able to read defenses, to pick up blitzes and direct your offensive line, take charge, know where to go with the football, be able to make those quick decisions where you go from your first to your second option to your third, maybe you check down, all the things that a quarterback has to do effectively in the middle of the maelstrom. I mean, they are coming to take your head off, and if you don't react and react quickly, we've seen how teams can just go nowhere or go backwards and be playing from behind the sticks, as they say. Michigan can't afford that this year. One of the things that Josh Gaddis said, he's don't know if he's eager to criticize his own offense, but he said one of the things he was disappointed with last year is the slow starts. Michigan not scoring on those first drives and giving up points on first drives, setting other teams up to be in the lead. And early on, that dictates somewhat how you attack. And so I know that's one of the things he wants to do better this year with this offense, is to get it going early. And the more your quarterback knows and the better he can attack right out of the gate, you're just better off.
And Josh is beginning his third year as offensive coordinator, John, and you have to think if he can find his quarterback. This team, when you look at the roster and the two deep, really does have a lot of talent on offense. It's young, it's unproven, but it's talented. Oh,
there's no question. You look at Hassan Haskins at running back, and he is powerful. He's determined. He's really tough. I just like the way he runs because he is not afraid of anyone. He's not, Jim Harbaugh loves to talk about contact courage. Well, it is embodied in Hassan Haskins. He's been around now. He has the confidence, and I think that he is going to be one very tough running back. But it doesn't end there. You've got Blake Corum, who showed the speed last year, and that he can be a real complement in terms of how he is able to catch the ball out of the backfield, how he's able to use his speed to get to the edges, all of that. And I guarantee you people are very excited about Donovan Edwards, the freshman out of West Bloomfield. This is a guy that is 5'11", almost 200 pounds. He is reminding some folks that I've talked to a little of Tyrone Wheatley. Maybe not without the top sprinter speed, but he's a guy that can really get it and go. And the other freshman, Tavier Dunlap out of Texas, has shown some things as well. So it's not an empty room by any means. They've had some issues with the transfer portal at this position and others, but they've got talent. There's no question about it. You look to the wide receivers, and you lost a wideout there as well, as along with a guy that was very good in special teams in Giles Jackson. But you've got speed. You've got a number of players that can step up and do some things. Those freshmen last year were very good. And you have veterans who can catch the ball. I think this is an offense that could score some points this year, and they're going to have to. As I look at the defense, I think there are a lot of questions to be answered, and not only in staying healthier than they did a year ago, and the offense needs to do the same, but also just in forming a more solid defense to put this team in better positions.
No, I agree with you there. The offense has so many pieces. It's a matter of development on that side of the ball. On the defense, yeah, that makes everyone a bit nervous. Most of the staff new over on that side of the ball, new schemes, and really a lack of depth, especially in that defensive line room.
That's one of the things is what are you going to do up front? Are you going to be better? Certainly it was a huge blow when Aiden Hutchinson went down a year ago. But also that beef in the middle. How are these younger guys coming along? We know that Mike Morris, a younger guy that has been around a couple years now, is starting to make some noise in there. But what about some of the other guys that have been here and just need to provide they can't get knocked back. They can't be giving up a couple yards off the ball. The Mozzie Smiths and the Chris Hintons, how are they going to step up and take the next step and really begin to look like those anchors in the middle that you need to see for defense? It's the front seven. There are questions among the linebackers. It's the cornerbacks. They struggled mightily at the start of last season. They got better as they went along. Will they take the next step? And how's it going to look? I mean, we got used to seeing so much man-to-man, so much the pressure, Don Brown defense. We're coming at you with everything that we have. And most of the time, that worked really well. Some of the time, when you were against teams that had superior offensive talent, it didn't look so good. Now I think we're going to see a little bit more of a measured approach in terms of how you come after people. I don't think that Michigan will lack aggressiveness under Mike McDonald, but I think you'll see more zone defenses. I think you'll see more covering up and helping out in the secondary than maybe we saw in years past, in recent years.
Yeah, I think we might see the philosophy that a lot of Michigan fans over the years have not liked, which is maybe a bend but don't break kind of a defense a lot of the time.
Exactly. Well, that's for years and years. That's what we heard. I'm so sick of bend but don't break. Give me an aggressive defense that's all out and it's going to come after people and just act like you want to win. Come after people. Well, Michigan has wanted to win against Ohio State, and yet the last two times they played them, gave up 118 points combined, and had the coach of Ohio State boasting that he was going to put 100 on Michigan if had they played last fall.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that they didn't from that standpoint. You need to have a consistent defense, one that is able to still dominate the teams that you're supposed to beat, as Michigan certainly did over the last few years. But you have to get to that last game, or you have to get to the Wisconsin game or the Penn State game and be able to not be taken advantage of with some of the methods that people were using, the blitz beaters and the crossing routes and all the things that went into seeing opposing receivers running away from the man-to-man schemes. And I think maybe now, after the last couple of years, Michigan fans are ready for that.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. I've been thinking since the end of the last season, in our lifetime, John, watching and covering Michigan football, we have never seen a Michigan football staff, and I even hate to say this, blown up like it was after the season. It's still just amazing to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that is a sign of where you are with this, in the Harbaugh years. I know that the Jim met with Ward Manuel, and they I'm sure had a very serious talk about where this whole thing was going and what is needed to dramatically turn it around, take a step up, you have had, like I said, seemingly this slow slide since 2016, and whatever the cause, whether you need to improve your recruiting, which this staff is seemingly designed to do, whether it's to patch those holes in the defense in the biggest games against the toughest opponents, whether it is coming up with that quarterback and developing the one who is going to pull the trigger and really direct you in those biggest games. You mentioned Jake Rudock. I really liked Wilton Spate, who wasn't the highest recruited guy, but until he got hurt in that Iowa game in 2016, he was leading this team to an undefeated regular season. And I know he was still hurting in the Ohio State game. So, but to get back to someone that is directing the show like people imagined it would be under Jim Harbaugh, who was a great quarterback and developed great quarterbacks in other stops. So that's what you're looking for. And I think that I'm anxious to see this staff work. I mean, you got guys that I certainly have covered, and you have with Mike Hart and Ron Bellamy, guys that gave a lot of heart and soul to Michigan, that can coach with an edge. I love the thought of Mike Hart teaching these running backs to chop down the trees that are coming after quarterbacks like he did. I mean, he was a great runner, but don't forget, one of the greatest aspects of what he did was his toughness for his stature to be able to block like he did. And, I think he's going to inject a lot into that room as well.
Well, one of the things that bothers me, and I'm sure it bothers a lot of Michigan fans, was the talk we started to hear last season from a lot of writers and analysts that Michigan had a culture problem. Whenever anyone uses that word, there's a culture problem, I sometimes don't know what they're talking about. I mean, Urban Meyer said Michigan needs to lift the hood and take a good long look and clean it up. But for those of us who've been fans or covered Michigan football for decades, it's even hard to imagine that being the situation at Michigan, isn't it?
It is, because we got used to a culture not only of winning, but of confidence, of, okay, we are going in. This is where we win championships. This is where your seniors have won a couple of Big Ten championships and been to the Rose Bowl, which was, kind of the epitome of things back in those days. And now you don't have a guy on the roster who has won a Big Ten championship, or most of them can't remember a Big Ten championship being won by Michigan. They you've got the transfer portal now. You've got as the criticism rises, you've got the easy out. I talk to former players, and they talk about all that they went through in becoming a good player and learning the adversity and learning what you had to do to overcome. And now it is, okay, I come in, I'm not, I don't see my future right away. I'm not playing as a freshman. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm out of here. And that's one of the things I really worry about with the kind of the easy transfer, easy eligibility now. It's college football's version of free agency, and I can't say as though I'm a fan. And that can add to it. I mean, if you have that going for it might be great for the players as far as at least their mobility and all, but I think it also puts an extra burden on the coaches who, you want hard coaching. You want them to be tough and all, and yet how tough can you be?
Yeah, really.
Without pushing someone out the door.
Well, a lot of changes with the portal and in other rules in college football. So, the older I get, I'm not sure if it's a good thing, but it's here, and we're just going to have to live with it for now. Spring practice, though, finally over now, John, and a lot of the focus is going to go to recruiting. And, of course, as we just mentioned, that's a lot of the reason why this new staff has been assembled by Jim Harbaugh to get out there. And, for the class of 2022, off to a nice start. I think we're number 20 right now. But we picked up a commit from a big-time receiver the other day, former teammate of J.J. McCarthy's in Notre Dame. A lot of teams were after him, so that was a big get, wasn't it?
No doubt about it. Tyler Morris is a top 100 guy, I think top 75 guy, according to Rivals, 6 foot, 175 pounds. And as you mentioned, a whole lot of people were after him, including Texas, Pennsylvania, the schools that you mentioned, other Big Ten teams certainly. And this is a big get because Michigan had a defection among the ranks with Xavier Worthy declaring himself no longer committed and up for his services up for grabs. So to follow this closely with an impact wide receiver commit is a really big deal for Michigan. Yeah, this is as far as the class as a whole, you've got maybe a little bit slower start than usual, but you certainly have some quality there. I mean, we mentioned Morris, you've got Will Johnson, the legacy defensive back, who's an absolute highlight of this class, just a complete stud as a potential cornerback down the road, and others who, I think you've got a decent collection of talent here. Another 4-star in Cody Jones, another defensive back. So you're looking to shore up those all-important parts of your defense for the future. Michigan, it's going to have to turn it up, I would say, on the recruiting over the next few months. But part of that, again, comes from the season itself. At least when you've struggled somewhat, and you're developing relationships. And you are assuring guys, okay, here's, we've made a lot of changes and we're going to put together a very solid year and with a bright future. They like hearing that. They would like to see a sample of it as you enter into this fall, which I think, it's a bigger season for Michigan than most in that respect, because before, if you'd won 3 or 4 Big Ten championships in the previous 5 years, and slip up a little bit, no big deal. Now it's like, okay, when's this going to start to pick up again?
It is very tough. I heard a recruiting coordinator say once, talking about Michigan or other great schools that are stumbling or struggling, that when you're recruiting juniors, sophomores, seniors in high school, history to them with your program is 2 years ago. They don't care about 30 or 40 years ago. It's recent. And we have to maybe sometimes think of ourselves when we were young, and that is exactly how you look at the world, isn't it?
Oh, there's no question about it. There's no question about it.
All right, so a final question for you, John. Season ticket renewals went out a few weeks ago, and the big question for Michigan fans is, how many will be allowed in the stadium this fall? And it could be months before we'll have a good idea on that question, though, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, there's so much uncertainty. You have encouragement in the fact that you've had a lot of the population either exposed and experiencing COVID and coming out on the other side, or having taken the vaccine now, and those numbers will only increase as you go through the rest of the spring, the summer, and all. And I think there would be a higher level of comfort zone there. But you really don't know. You can't put a number on that right at this point. So we're just going to have to wait and see where things are. You'd love to see a full or mostly full Michigan Stadium, signaling that sense of normalcy back in the big house. But that is not something that is going to be determined, I wouldn't think, anytime really soon.
I don't think so either. It's going to be a long wait, and it could be very different in different parts of the country, but that question can't be answered for right now. One more thing before we let you get away. I get this question a lot this time of the year, and when I was promoting the fact that I was going to have you on today, I was getting emails from listeners saying, ask John when the preview magazine is going to be out. And I know you guys are hard at work. Still set for sometime in July?
Yeah, we're laying the foundations right now to put that together and move forward. And I would say it will be either late June or early July where you'll see that popping up. I know that we will have it sent off to the printers in the later part of June, and we'll see how the process goes from there. But I would say, folks, I think it's usually around just before or around the 4th of July that folks start looking forward to come rolling in. And it's always fun because people will get on our message board. I got mine in Albany, New York, and it's in Honolulu. And yeah, it's fun to because people get excited about it. And the reason they get excited is it's Michigan football. And so, we will certainly crank another one out to the best of our ability and let the chips fall where they may.
As usual, we can't wait to see that. With us on our show today on our Game Day segment this week has been senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine magazine. Always a pleasure to have you on the show, John. You're so gracious with your time. Keep up the great work there at the Wolverine and with the podcasts. I think my listeners all enjoy your podcast too, and we look forward to that next visit very soon.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. And always, you, as I said, you do a great job. Love being with you.
On Quick Hits, number 20 ranked softball, 21-4 overall, will resume its homestand with a 4-game set against Northwestern this weekend. The series kicks off with a 6 p.m. slate on Friday, followed by a 1 p.m. doubleheader on Saturday and a noon series finale on Sunday. Michigan leads the nation with a 0.85 team earned run average. Individually, junior right-handed pitcher Alex Storako ranks second nationally with a 0.41 ERA, while senior left-handed pitcher Megan Bobian is 22nd with a 1.11 ERA. The Wolverines have earned shutouts in 11 of their 25 games this season. Michigan previously led the nation in 2008 when All-Americans Nikki Nemitz and Jordan Taylor combined for a 0.88 ERA. Number 23 ranked baseball, 18-7 overall, returns home Friday through Sunday for a 3-game set against Rutgers, and Rutgers is 12-12 on the year so far. On Friday, the series opens with a 4 p.m. game, with Saturday's contest scheduled for 2 p.m. The finale is scheduled for Sunday at 1 p.m., and all 3 games will be streamed live on Big Ten Network Plus. Okay, a program reminder for May, June, and July. After we close out April next week, we're going to be on our summer schedule of 2 shows a month to recharge our batteries and, get ready for football season. In August, we are back on our weekly schedule. And then during football season, as many of you know, we have 2 shows a week. We've been doing it this way for the last 12 years. So once again, though, I just wanted to give you a heads up. So thanks again to John Borton for being our guest. As always, a big thank you to each and every one of you who find a few minutes each week to listen to the show. So please take a minute to give us a rating, maybe even a comment on the show, wherever you get your podcasts from. That does it for another show. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew.
Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!